welcome to Stars and Stripes Soccer. I'm Zach. I'll be hosting today's episode. Um, U.S. men's national team report sadly can't join at this time. Today's episode will focus on predicting the Copa America roster. It'd be one of three tournaments that'll be happening this summer that the U.S. be taking part in. The other two will be the CONCACAF U20 Championship and the Olympic Games in Paris. Copa America is the first one to begin. That will be in June. The other two will begin in July. As part of this episode, I'll be just giving my prediction of those who be on the roster. Let's share a screen. So these are who I believe could be on the roster for the Copa America. Right now, we are looking at 23-man roster with a possibility of 26. They have a star next to their names. Those are the three individuals I believe will get called up if it's 26 men. Reason why I gave Trusty 2 stars is if we have 26-man roster and for some reason someone is injured that won't be able to take part in the tournament, I would think that he would be the one that would be called up. To begin with, it's the goalkeepers. Obviously, Matt Turner will be called up. That has been Berhalter's number one goalkeeper since the World Cup. And I think that would be our number one goalkeeper probably leading up to the 2026 World Cup. Next individual I have is Gaga Salona. I know that there's a good chance that he could be at the Olympics, but I think that they may use this opportunity to put him in the camp with the first team, especially with the possibility of him being at the 2026 World Cup. They want to start integrating him into that team. And with the Olympics, right now it looks like they may make Schulte the starting goalkeeper. He's rightfully so. He's kind of justified that based on the last U23 camp, but I would not be upset if Gaga is at the Olympics as well. For number 3 goalkeeper, I have Ethan Horvath. Even though he's had some up and downs this season, not starting and playing any matches in the first half of the season and having some good games and bad games with Cardiff, it's obvious that Berhalter does not care about those and will continue sticking with having Horvath as our number 3 goalkeeper. But I think that will have to change by 2026. For defenders, at left back, we have Anthony Robinson, which is pretty obvious. You had to have him there, especially with the season he's had with Fulham. And it's obvious that Berhalter has him as his number 1 left back. And also Chris Lunt, based on what Berhalter said in a press conference when Lunt first joined the team, he sees him as the number 2 left back in our pool. And with that being the case, right now, it looks like that he will put him in the 2026 World Cup, since this is our first and only major tournament leading up to the 2026 World Cup. I see him being there as well. At right back, we have Joe Scally. With Des being injured, we're not going to have Des. It's only going to be Joe Scally. I don't think that he'll bring another right back unless that roster is 26 men. For center backs, I have Cameron Carter-Vickers, Chris Richards, Tim Ream, and Miles Robinson. Obviously, CCV is rated by Berhalter, even Miles Robinson. Tim Ream, he's pretty much a leader on that team. Even though he hasn't really played much this season, he's been getting call up still. I think he's going to remain calling up Tim Ream unless he starts underperforming for the national team or announces a retirement. I do believe that there's a good chance that Richards and Tim Ream will be our main duo, but in the past, Berhalter has said that he sees Miles Robinson and Chris Richards as our duo for 2026. I think it could go either way. There might be some rotation that happens there during a group stage, I believe. But you can't put that past Berhalter that he will not do rotation. If it goes to 26 men, I can see him bringing in Dejon Jones as a fourth fullback. Yes, he plays mainly at left back for New England Revolutions, but being a right-footed fullback, he can play at the right back as well. And I think he might put him ahead of Joe Scally, especially how things went for Scally last camp. And to be honest, I would put Trusty ahead of Robinson, but it's kind of obvious that Miles Robinson is right above Austin Trusty and Berhalter's eyes. But I think he's just outside of that top four center backs. And with Berhalter loving his fullbacks, Trusty can play at left back. For midfield, in the sixth position, I have Tyra Adams and Johnny Cardozo. It is very obvious that TA is Berhalter's number one center mid defender. As for him being available, it is reported that he will be playing in the last match for Bournemouth, maybe even this weekend. There's a wait and see if it actually does happen. Even though he is not in the best physical condition at this moment, I do believe that TA would start ahead of Johnny. Some people will agree with that. Others, like me, will not agree with that. Johnny Cardozo obviously is probably seen as a number two central defensive mid for Berhalter. So, but I think he was starter if for some reason Adams cannot be there. If there's a 26-man roster, I can see him bringing in Leonard Maloney as well. With that, also Luca De La Torre. I think he will only make it in there if it's a 26-man roster. I do think that he will bring in Brandon Anderson if it's a 23-man roster. It is pretty obvious that he rates him very highly. Yes, he did initially call him up at first and last camp, but Brandon Anderson has started to perform at Union Berlin. I don't think he should be one of the 23 men. I think he should be one of those extra three if it was to expand to 26. I mean, but I think Berhalter will use the excuse that he's been performing recently to get him on that Copa America roster. For the eights, we obviously have Yunus Musa and Weston McKinney. McKinney is going to be that main box-to-box midfielder for us. But if for some reason Adams can't be there, I can also see Berhalter playing McKinney at the 8 and playing Musa at the 6 instead of starting Johnny as the 6. I think it's kind of 50-50 at this point. We'll have to wait and see. When we go up against Brazil in that friendly just before the tournament. At left wing and the right wing, we have Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah. Obviously, those are going to be the main two on the wings, but I would rather see Haji Wright play at the wing. Gregg Berhalter showed that he sees him more as a 9, even though through most of the season, Haji has been playing at the left, and that's where he's been the most productive. Hopefully he sees that and starts playing him at left wing as a backup to Pulisic, or have a duo of Pulisic and Haji. I also have Josh Sargent in here because he is versatile. He can play on the wings if need to. In Berhalter, that's the type of player that he likes as a striker. Ricardo Pepi, I have him as the number 2 striker for the U.S. I don't believe that Berhalter will start him, even though people have made their arguments for why he should start over Balogun, but I just don't think that would be the case. It's kind of obvious from the last couple of camps that Berhalter is going to continue starting Balogun ahead of Pepi. For me, it does make sense because Pepi has been more productive for us when he comes off the bench than when he starts for us. It's always good to have him as that super sub. And right now, that's kind of his position, not just for the national team, but also for his club, until he proves that he can be productive once again as a starter like he did at Groningen. And the number 1 striker is going to be Balogun. Besides the fact that he is rated as number 1 for Berhalter, kind of have to put him as a starter, even with how he's underperformed this season. There's kind of a political reasons you had to do it, just because you fought tooth and nail to get him on this team. You don't want him to start regretting his decision, if he hasn't already, for picking the U.S. over England. So yes, that is the roster I believe that we'll see from Gregg Berhalter. Is one of those things that we just have to see when the preliminary roster comes out. No idea when that would be, but Mexico just released theirs, and before anyone else did, Brazil has already released their 23-man roster for the Copa America. So when we see the preliminary roster, we'll have a better idea who would be there. I don't think people who would be at the Copa America will also be at the Olympics, and vice versa. I know that a lot of people have talked about that being a real possibility. I know when Ricardo Pepi did the shootings that started for the Olympics, that became a big question if he would be at both or just be at the Olympics. I can't remember who it was, but someone said that they'd rather see Ricardo Pepi at the Olympics than at the Copa America, because he will be the guaranteed starter for the Olympics, and to let him shine there. I understand that point, but we do need someone off the bench at the striker position that we can trust. Even though Sargent has been excellent for Norwich this season, and he could possibly want to go and boot if he had not had that long injury. Even I think that he deserves to be on that roster. I don't think that him and Haji should be the number 2 striker. I think, again, Haji should be on the wing because that's where he's been the most productive. And when he did score those 2 goals against Jamaica in the Nations League, it was playing off to the left, not centrally, where we usually will see Pepe and again. Sargent should be the third striker as an option for also to play in as that right wing for Tim Weah. But yeah, I don't think that we'll see players on the Copa America roster also on the Olympics. I think it's going to be one of those things that if you're on a Copa America roster, you're not going to be on the Olympic roster. It's going to be two different people. Yes, as a U.S. fan, you want to win both, but for me, also, the Olympic is a youth tournament, and with every youth camp, it's time for also development for those players, giving players opportunities at the youth level. I'd rather see players who were not at the Copa America have an opportunity to be at the Olympics. I think that would be better for their development and exposure, and for any do-nots that can be used as a recruiting method to get them on the roster. So, yeah, when we get closer to the CONCACAF U20 Championship and the Olympics, we'll also do a prediction roster for those. I will say that the Olympics is going to be a little bit more difficult to create because it's 15 players under the age of 23, 3 overage players, 3 must be goalkeepers, and there are 4 alternative players. Yes, but it's supposed to be overall a 22-man roster, but only 18 that are playable. So yes, thank you for joining our very first episode. We're very happy about releasing this episode, and we look forward to seeing you all again.